Dave,
Go ahead, Jeff.
you talked last week about how you expected the run defense in particular to be pretty much pick up where you left off. Tell us how you thought you did Saturday.
I think defense as a whole did a great job. I think, there's areas of improvement that we all want to work on. A little bit of miscommunication, things that we definitely are going to fix this week. But I think it was a great foothold. I think that's a great floor for us. The first game should be the floor, and, it should not be the ceiling. We should just continue to get better every single week. In terms of run defense, I think the D-line, we did a great job. I think we did good enough. I don't think we did our best. I think there's still a lot more we could have done. But as our good GM said, a way to tell if the D-line did a great job is if the linebackers were making a ton of plays, and I think our linebackers did an amazing job. I know Cade was out there showing out, and so I was very happy with him. But of course, the D-line wants to always improve as a whole, and defense in general just is going to always get better every game.
You mentioned during fall camp that having Vic and TB calling plays would be the best of both worlds. Now that you have a game under your belt, what were some of the best things that they've done and kind of helped you guys set you up for success?
I think that was a great mix of pressures, in terms of, pressures with good coverages, but also a good amount of max drops, and then having a bunch of guys back there. I think they mixed it in very well, and then the adjustments they made. You could see Coach TB and Coach Soto working off each other at halftime, on the sideline, communicating with each other what they saw worked, what they saw didn't work. Things that we need to emphasize on the sideline, stuff they need to watch for, stuff that the offense was giving us that maybe we haven't seen. And so they did a great job adjusting to what we were given and then what we were doing to improve upon the next play and get the best call out there for us.
And what's kind of some of your input that you give to them? Because obviously you're seeing it, you're experiencing it right there, right then and there. What happened on your end in terms of trying to give them information?
I think for us, it was the communication between the different players and the coaches, telling what we felt, what we saw with ourselves. Of course, we have iPads now and we can watch the play, but what we're seeing, if we're hearing any calls being made, if we're seeing anything, pre-snap tendencies before the play happens, stuff that kind of communication. And then also they're asking us, how did that feel? How did that play call feel into that? Did you feel like they're getting out really quickly, or do you feel like you can get across? They're just, we're relaying information back and forth. It's a conversation, between coach and player of how we can put the best call out there and play the best defense and make the best stop. And then, recommendations I'd have for them is just for both of them to keep communicating the same way they have. They've done a great job being able to just mesh together and bring out the best of both worlds. And so that's my only recommendation, is to keep that relationship and keep doing that through the season.
Aidan, what have you seen so far on tape of Texas Southern? What sort of challenges may they present to you guys?
They're a downhill team. They're big up front, big bodies. They like running the ball. So, it starts up front for us. We got to stop the run. We got to knock back, we got to get penetration, and then we got to just get those 3 and outs. It's something we really want to work on, are those those fundamentals for the D-line and our front seven. Just small things that we saw during our last week's game that we can just improve upon. Every team comes out here to play their best, and I know they're going to come out here and play their very best against us, and we cannot slack in any way against any competition that we play. I'm really excited for them, and I think they're going to come out here and play their hardest, and we got to match that and exceed it even.
What have you seen from the quarterback?
I'm really excited to play. We emphasize their run game. They're a big run team, but there are also some drop back passes in there, and they love that quick game, and so we got to be ready to get our hands up on the D line, be ready for those short routes, a little bit of play action, but just be ready for those quick concepts for us, getting our hands up and knocking balls down.
If there was one quibble from an overall really good defensive standpoint on Saturday night, was you had only 1 sack. But sometimes that's kind of a direct effect of what the game plan is to stop, because you can't stop everything. So right. Was it 1 sack because maybe you were quite good, or was it 1 sack because your main goal was to stop the run and you can't stop everything?
I think our defensive mentality, no matter what, is job 1A is always stopping the run. Job 1A is, our standard. We always want to stop the run, but that doesn't mean that job 1B, hitting the quarterback, getting the sack, isn't important. I think that's something that we want to improve upon. I think that's something that an area we can massively grow through this season, and I think it's something we're going to focus on in these upcoming games, that we want to improve on those transitional rushes, getting off edges and just getting on an edge of a guy. I think that's something we really want to work on as a whole defense. I think we did a great job pressuring him and making him drop back with a lot of depth, but I think there's always room for improvement for us.
Guys, let's go to Matt on the phone, give him a chance, then we'll wrap it up after that.
How you doing, Matt?
During camp,
Pretty good. During camp, we talked about, some of the new guys getting an opportunity. Obviously, you guys, beyond just the young guys, you had some new players that were getting their first chance to play with you guys. How important was it for, a number of guys to get their feet wet, and what maybe stood out to you about, some of those newcomers?
I think it was amazing. On the D-line, we saw two guys, BJ and Michael Anthony, get their first snaps out there. I think it was great for them to dip their toe in, experience what a real game is versus practice, because, when you get out there, the game is completely different than practice. It's faster, it's a lot more intense. There can be some anxiety. I know it's, for people that haven't played on the field, it's the pressure and, the stands, the people around you, especially in an away game, it could be a little scary, but in the end, you got to make it like practice. And one thing that we like to emphasize is making practice a lot harder than games. And so if we push ourselves on this field a lot harder than we do, then that Saturday will be a lot easier for us. And then, some of the guys that I was really emphasizing this offseason, TJ, you saw him. He did an amazing job. I think he's going to do amazing for us this entire year. And, we have Ryan, I talked about Cade. A lot of people had him underrated, but I think he's going to be an unstoppable player for us. And I'm just really excited for what the rest of this season holds for all those new guys and all those guys that are making their voices heard.
Okay, final question for Aidan, anybody? Okay.
All good? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.